Morning, everyone, and welcome to the Scoreboard, or welcome to Ducksville. New Zealand are in disarray after India's new ball bowlers destroyed them, and then Jaiswal went out and almost doubled their total on his own. Nothing to see here. This is, no, that's not what happened. Let me try that again. India were bowled out for 46 at home, and Jasprit Bumrah and Ashwin were knocked around, and New Zealand have almost quadrupled India's score in a single day. What? Is that right? It doesn't feel right. India decided, Rohit decided, I suppose, to let New Zealand quicks have first crack on a wicket that he called sticky. If this was sticky, then I'd hate to. I mean, it was worse than sticky. Sticky is a little bit awkward. This was something else. But let's be honest. There are a lot of people that after they saw this suddenly decided that they were experts. At the time, it seemed like an okay move. You get past the new ball, maybe lose a couple of wickets, and and then in the afternoon, as the sun hits the pitch, you go on. The problem was that India did not make the afternoon because the ball seamed and bounced. It was like some weird hybrid of an England green top and the whacker. And this is going to sound weird, but New Zealand were not actually perfect with the ball. But when they did get it right, I mean, good luck. Rohit went to one that seamed, Virat went to one that bounced and seamed, and Sarfraz seemed to look like batting had been explained to him yesterday and was still a concept to him rather than a reality. There was a fight back, like a mini micro one, that helped by Tom Blundell's drop. But then it was just duck and another duck, and then, I don't know, another duck. Duckstown, Ducksville, village of the ducks. India's strong lower order barely faced the ball. O'Rourke was fast and bouncy and kind of all over the place in the way that fast bowlers should be. Matt Henry was genius. And then the worst possible thing happened for India. The numbers 9 and 11 stayed in for a while. That is not what you want to see when you are barely going to pass 50. You want the carnage to keep going. The last thing you want is to see the batting conditions start to even out. You need to bowl this lot out for around 100, right? Less than 100, like a lot less than 100. And suddenly it didn't look like that kind of wicket at all. And then New Zealand overcame the new ball. Ashwin's first spell, Conway getting hit on the arm, and Bumrah's second spell. And amongst that, India dropped catches, missed stumpings, and went to the wrong end on a run out. It was just bad all the way through. Like, if you gave India a cupcake today, they would have missed their mouth and put it in their eye by accident. At one stage, their slips just parted like the Red Seas. And how different was this to New Zealand's fielding, who were pulling out stunners out of their arse at regular intervals? In fact, half their team took a screamer. In fact, New Zealand played an absolute screamer of a day, whereas India, they had nothing but screams.
If you need your pitch changed, well, NordVPN can doctor any surface to a new location so that your IP address is set for you to win. Want to watch a game on a free stream in another hemisphere? Give NordVPN the ball. Or if you just want to watch a clip on social media that a cricket board won't allow, promote NordVPN to pinch hit. So if you need a VPN, go Nord. Use nordvpn.com/Kimber to get a 2-year contract with a discount, plus 4 extra months and gifts in some markets. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. Protect your computer like a bowler protects the boundaries in the death overs with nordvpn.com/Kimber today.
All right, let us get to the scoreboard part of the show. Remember, please subscribe, like, put comments in, all those things. At the end of the show, I'll definitely get to the super chats, and I'll see if I can get to anything else as well. But we've got a scoreboard first. We always scoreboard first. So let's have a look at what the hell happened here. This is the lowest team score by India in test matches. This is all of them, I should say. So we have here, this was in Adelaide, of course. 36 all out. It seems like a million years ago. In 1974, Lords. So this is the lowest score in India by India. And, it was really, really bad and dramatic. And it was sort of the way that those collapses sort of go. It kind of had the top end bit, and then you're like, can they fight back and get themselves to a bit where the ball starts to soften and maybe the sun comes out in the afternoon? And then when that didn't happen, it felt like they were losing a wicket at every ball. In fact, I still can't believe Matt Henry didn't get a hat trick, by the way, because that was an incredible pickup off the half volley. But a low score. This is the median bounce when the ball was bowled in the 5.7 meter range. So excluding today, you would normally get about just over half a meter's worth of bounce on this wicket. In the second innings today, a little bit up on that, so still a little bit more bounce. And in the first innings, it was quite a bit up. Like that, that's 20 centimeters more bounce than you would expect on a pitch like this. And it wasn't as if it was consistent bounce. I saw there was a comment here saying something along the lines of, is this good preparation for Australia? This is not how the ball bounces in Australia. This is how the ball bounces on an inconsistent wicket, right? A wicket that's been under covers for a few days. And I think what Rohit Sharma said was probably a little bit true. It did play like a sort of an old-fashioned sticky wicket, even if that's maybe not exactly what he meant at the time. But there's no doubt that when there was bounce, it was quite dramatic. On top of that also, O'Rourke and Henry probably slightly more set up to exploit the bounce than Bumrah and Siraj are, even if it had changed. I mean, we could see it had anyway. But even if it had changed, I would have thought that O'Rourke is probably the best one to handle that kind of movement. There's no doubt about that at all. And this is Matt Henry. His career has kind of been ruined. I'm trying to think of what kind of bowlers you would compare him to. I suppose Shane Bond is maybe the obvious one, but it's maybe more along the lines of a Ryan Harris, Bruce Reid. It might be another one where we know how good these players were, but things just kept happening to them. In Ryan Harris's case, South Australia wouldn't give him a game for about a decade. And by the time he started playing, his body was already on the decline. Bruce Reid could never keep his body together. Matt Henry has had to go up against the fact that New Zealand had their greatest ever seam bowling attack and the best seam bowling attack in the world, and he couldn't always break into it. When he is fit and when they do pick him, and it does seem that those two things are not always that common when it comes to him, he's an absolutely fantastic bowler. I love the way, you watch him on a wicket that is in helpful conditions, and his ability to move the ball both ways at decent pace with incredible accuracy. I'm just a huge fan of Matt Henry, and we could see that there was a few years there. I remember being asked around this period, probably on this very channel. Actually, it wouldn't have been on this channel, but it was definitely on a live about why he wasn't taking more wickets in Test matches. And I was like, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. But the last 13 or so games, we've seen the Matt Henry, who has also destroyed at the top of one-day games and T20 games. He's such a brilliant new ball bowler and couldn't have got much better conditions for the kind of bowler he is today. Because he does get nice, good carry through and, decent bounce. He's not like O'Rourke, of course, but also he needs the sideways movement. So the combination of both for him was very, very good. This is the false shot percentage. So over 50% of the balls that Matt Henry bowled, there was a false shot played off. That's a lot. That's like Bumrah in a T20 numbers, right? Like that is absolutely ridiculous numbers to see. Southee, I thought bowled okay, maybe just bowled a little bit short and a little bit wide at times. And O'Rourke, when he bowled his best ball, it was absolutely fantastic, but the ball got away from him. He's a really interesting bowler as well. And you can see here just with the pitch maps, I thought probably this is the bit where Southee just got a little bit too wide and couldn't quite get his line 100%. But you can see there was one point where he was good. But I just think on this wicket, he could have just afforded to be just maybe more in this zone and less over here. And you can see, though, but for the other guys, that length was absolutely perfect. Just whacking it in between, 6 and 8 meters over and over again, the extra bounce. But you can see this clump up here for Henry, and that's what I'm talking about. I think that's where Southee could have been a lot more. And isn't this beautiful? Oh my God, this is proper, almost Nanty Haywood. In fact, I was commentating today on TalkSport 2 with Steve Harmison, and Steve Harmison was like, this guy reminds me of me. Like, there's a lot of Steve Harmison in this pitch map, isn't there? This is tight grouping, and this is a very tight grouping, and this is just beautiful. Look how wide some of these balls were. And even when he was trying to bowl wide, he bowled wider than he wanted to. That was the glorious bit of that. So yeah, absolutely, and no doubt, we are seeing three very different bowlers here, and isn't that good? Because quite often we see, very similar patterns. There ain't nothing similar there. This was the percentage of balls with more than 1 degree seam movement in India since 2022. So the first innings was 42% of the balls. So that means we're talking about serious sideways movement off the pitch at that point. And if you go back, even if you look at KR Rahul's wicket where he scored down the leg side, if you have a look again, that ball still seams. So if it doesn't seam, he probably gets enough bat on that to certainly get it past fine leg, if nothing. Past the wicketkeeper, I should say, maybe down to fine leg. So usually, quite clearly, you don't get a lot of seam in India, and today was more than double what we would normally amount. And that's not including the bounce we've already talked about. Oh, and just to go back to the bounce before, actually, I'm going to literally go back to this and just explain this for a little bit. So I talked about this on air as well. There's a few different ways of calculating bounce and everything else, but I think, what's this, 19 centimeters? And I looked up, and some of it, when I looked it up, it was about 26 centimeters difference between the normal bounce that you would expect. And what we are talking about then is almost a foot, and a bat is 82 centimeters long, and it's not like you play from the middle, so you're really looking at probably about an extra 50 centimeters high from the middle of the bat to the shoulders of the bat, and some of those balls were actually bouncing more than 50 centimeters higher than you would expect. And so it's about the consistency. So it wasn't even consistent high bounce, which would have been a much easier thing. We know it wasn't consistent high bounce, of course, because it also died out by the second innings. We had Conway hit on the glove and Conway hit on the arm, but realistically, it was pretty good when it comes to the bounce in that second one. But yes, seam movement. So in the first 30 overs in India in the last couple of years, you've got here 0.87 as your average seam movement. That's quite jaggy, whereas that's almost double what you would normally expect in India. Almost double, my God. And it's a combination of both, of course, which I think made the worst of everything. And you can see here just how long. So I was on air on TalkSport around this stage here, around the 12th over. And I said that what I thought would happen is somewhere around the 18th over, we would see the pitch start to flatten out as the ball got softer. It doesn't actually flatten out until the 28th over, right? So there is plenty of seam movement happening consistently. It's not like this big bunch in here between the 5th and the 13th over, which is absolutely crazy. But this is consistent movement and sideways movement that they had to handle all the way through. These are tough conditions to bat in. And this is seam versus swing. So you can see at the top. So what we have here is this seam versus swing? Oh my God. Yeah, it is seam versus swing. God, I'm going mad. Some canvas stuffed up the bottom of our graphs and I can't even read them anymore. Plus, I've been awake since 3 a.m. So, we're on fumes here, people. We're on fumes. But you can see here with O'Rourke that he gets consistently a lot more swing than he does seam. That's because he struggles to keep his wrist straight. And you can see this is Tim Southey down the bottom here, where you can see, this is when Tim Southey's trying to bowl an outswinger. And this up here is when Tim Southey's trying to bowl the wobble ball. It's a really good explanation of those two things. You can just see through the darker dots. And you can see the difference is, what does Matt Henry do? He's just trying to bowl the wobble ball consistently all the way through. And sometimes it is seaming away from the right-handers, and sometimes it's seaming into the right-handers. And obviously, if it's the left-hander, the same again. So you've got with him, it's constantly just going a little bit this way and a little bit that way. Whereas these other two bowlers have, in fact, this is a brilliant graphic to show this. These other bowlers have just a little bit more variability in what they do. And it's one of the reasons why I think Matt Henry is so hard to play. And just their lengths, obviously O'Rourke is going to, as the faster bowler and the taller bowler probably as well, is going to bowl a little bit shorter than everyone else. So we've got the swing bowler bowling a little bit fuller, and you got Matt Henry with his normal length. But you can see in here that Matt Henry just has that extra little bit when he wants to pitch it up, which was what I was talking about before. And I would have liked for Tim Southey to have a bit more of a lump in this section. I want more lumps on Tim Southey is what I'm trying to say here. But isn't this fantastic? Everything about Will O'Rourke is everywhere. It's funny. Steve Harmison was saying he's not quite X factor yet because he's not quite got the pace, but because of his release point and the fact he doesn't always know what is exactly coming out of his hand, there is already an element of X factor about William O'Rourke. And the balls by lengths today, and I probably would have liked a few extra balls in this area, but who's going to complain? They bowled them out for 46. Like, I think they know what they're doing. And the average length by wicket, this is kind of why I wanted more of them, is just bowling that little bit fuller in that 6 and 7 meter mark, I think is easy. But this is slightly over pitching, of course, but you're still only averaging 20 with that. But look at this down here. When they did get it between 6 and 7 meters, average less than 5. But 7 and 8 meters, it was doing fine. All I'm saying is, if you want the absolute perfect bowling day, they were off by a couple of inches. No one cares. But that's what the scoreboard is here for, to care about these things that no one else does. And this is the speed distribution. So we can see here O'Rourke up at that sort of 140 up until about 145 mark. I think he probably can bowl a little bit quicker than that in the future. And we can see Matt Henry kind of has the two speeds, doesn't he? That sort of 134-ish. And then what's that, about 130? And Tim Southey is low 130s pretty consistently now. Oh, have I made a mistake here? I haven't. This is Devon Conway's innings list in Test cricket. I think we see here, this is the kind of run, if you look at it and the period of time, this is very much the kind of run that Babar Azam was just dropped off, right? I think Babar Azam might have played a couple of extra tests in that time, but my guess is it would have been more or less fairly similar looking at that kind of period. Not saying that the decision to drop Babar Azam was wrong. I'm just saying it shows you how different teams look at these things, whereas they know New Zealand that they have a high quality player in Devon Conway, and they're willing to give him a little bit of extra time to be able to come back and do everything else. But there's no doubt that in the start of his career, he was very, very good because people were trying to get him to nick off. And now they understand that they have to bring the ball back into him. Today, India tried to bring the ball back in. They hit him on the glove. They hit him on the elbow. They bowled some really good deliveries to him, but they couldn't get through him. Eventually, he got himself out by probably tipping his reverse sweep a little bit too early to Ashwin, which allowed him to do that. And wasn't he furious at that all the way through? But we can certainly see that he's been struggling for form, and he isn't the only New Zealand batter, right? But one thing I really like about Devon Conway when he is at his best is the fullness at which he scores. He's not massively strong through mid-off and extra cover. That's fairly common with left-handers, to be fair, because of the angle from the right-arm bowlers that can happen here. But he's got, he obviously can go square of the wicket on the offside, and he can pretty much hit anywhere on the leg side at any stage. And I really liked the 6 today when he came down the wicket and hit that one over the top. So that was absolutely brilliant. And that's it. That's us done for the scoreboard. What I will do here is I'll have a quick break, and then after the break, we will come back with more of your questions here on the scoreboard. So like, subscribe, do all those fancy things, and see you in a sec.
If you need your pitch changed, well, NordVPN can doctor any surface to a new location so that your IP address is set for you to win. Want to watch a game on a free stream in another hemisphere? Give NordVPN the ball. Or if you just want to watch a clip on social media that a cricket board won't allow, promote NordVPN to pinch hit. So if you need a VPN, go Nord. Use nordvpn.com/Kimber to get a 2-year contract with a discount, plus 4 extra months and gifts in some markets. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. Protect your computer like a bowler protects the boundaries in the death overs with nordvpn.com/Kimber today.
All right, I think we've got a few questions, including super chat from Samit, who says, "How good was O'Rourke? What made Marshall, Walsh, McGrath, Gillespie, Steyn, and Anderson special in India? Their records in India and Asia are extraordinary for centre pacers. At their peaks, pick any of the two of them to dream. Who would you pick? You would probably Walsh is so good. I mean, I want to go with McGrath and Marshall just because that's a great pairing, and I really like how you can use them. But Walsh and Steyn, yeah, I think I'll still go with Marshall and McGrath for that. But you could also go with Walsh and Steyn, and that would almost be as good in India. I don't have a problem there. I think O'Rourke's really good. I mean, if you went, I think I did about 9 previews for this series on Cricket 8 on our channel, and I think I did one for Talksport as well. I kept talking up O'Rourke. I think he's a fantastic bowler. I think because of the way he releases the ball, he's not always in control of the ball. That might sound like a weakness, but it's also a bit of a strength when you are a very tall bowler who's still reasonably fast. So that unpredictability, he gets unpredictability of bounce, but he also gets lateral movement. And I'm trying to think of someone else, maybe like a young Morne Morkel, but Morne Morkel was a little bit more repeatable. But I think it's very similar again to a young Morne Morkel. So look, think of the kind of bowlers I've compared him to. Nanty Haywood, Steve Harmison, Morne Morkel, these sort of fast, big guys. And it's that combination of all those things. And then if you can add any sideways movement to it. I remember when Morne Morkel used to play, the Australians used to say that Dale Steyn was obviously the better bowler, but they preferred to face Dale Steyn than they did Morne Morkel, just because he was so hard. Drew says, O'Rourke is far, far better than Harmison and Nanty Haywood. Well, based on, Steve Harmison has 200 test wickets and was once ranked the #1 bowler in the world. We have no idea if O'Rourke's even going to reach any of those heights. So let's settle down there, Drew. I would say O'Rourke's a better bowler than Nanty Haywood. But if you look at that pitch map, right? So you need to listen to what I'm saying. I didn't say he's the same kind of bowler as Nanty Haywood or the same talent of bowler. I said he's got that kind of pitch map that you would have seen from Nanty Haywood back in the old days, where there's a little bit of everything. There's no grouping, right? So, most fast bowlers, even to go to the Morne Morkel one I mentioned a moment ago, Morne Morkel genuinely grouped the ball roughly in the same place over and over again. Steve Harmison, less so, right? And Nanty Haywood, way less so. That pitch map that we saw today looked like the sort of thing that you would expect from someone like Nanty Haywood. The difference is, and as I've already said, is I think with O'Rourke, it's that lateral movement is really important. And so to have all of those different skills together, I think is, absolutely, it's a combination. And that's why I've been so excited with him. I don't know why his trousers were 4 sizes smaller than they needed to be. I think that's something New Zealand cricket needs to rectify very quickly. Like, it was halfway up his shins. What are we doing here? But no, I'm a huge fan of him. But but he does profile. I think Steve Harmison is probably the best person, the best nearest neighbor comparison. High release point, fast, hit the wicket bowler. It probably gets a bit more lateral movement than Harmy, and maybe Harmy's balls that were back of a length would sort of spit up a little bit more. But if New Zealand have a Steve Harmison, what did Steve Harmison end up with? He ended up with a pretty good record, right? He was not a dodgy bowler at all. He's in the other room. I'm not just saying that because he'll come and smack me, but he took 226 wickets, an average of 31 in a period when bowling was really, really tough all around the world, and batters absolutely dominated. That was a really good record. If O'Rourke is the same kind of bowler as him with lateral movement, oh my God, that's a monster of a bowler, right? And that's a really, really important one. Drew, I think you've got to listen, but the general point is that's what you're looking for. You're looking for nearest neighbors. Why is this guy being so successful at the moment? But there's also issues there. There were times when he did struggle with his direction today. He bowled a ball to third slip, didn't he? Didn't Steve Harmison do that, Drew? We got another. Roll says, under bad light conditions, the umpires don't allow seamers to bowl, but they allow spinners. But can't a spinner try and bowl seam up and quick to take advantage of the situation? So if a spinner bowls a quick ball, they'd only ever bowl one, and obviously they'd have to hide that they do it. And once they bowl that quick, then the umpires will take them off anyway. So that has happened before and will happen again. People try and exploit that. It's usually not so dark that you can't see the ball at like 125 Ks, which is what most spinners would be doing as a quicker ball. I know maybe there's maybe Afridi and Warren had slightly more powerful arms than that, but generally that's probably what you're looking at. But yeah, you could take advantage, and certainly I know of spinners who will say when it is darker that they will just start bowling quicker anyway. Kronk says conditions played a big part, but still kudos to New Zealand. They played really well. Yeah, I think this is a good one. The conditions were there. And they suited specifically the kind of New Zealand bowlers that we were seeing there. But when it comes down to it, it was excellent cricket from New Zealand. And we've talked a lot about the bowling, but in the intro, I talk about the catching. So you've got, I'll try and remember all these catches. The Glenn Phillips one, just managing to get his fingers under it. I don't think it was a brilliant catch or anything, but it's hard to come forward in that position. You have Devon Conway's one-hander off Safraz, which was absolutely, brilliant. There was Bracewell's one-hander as well. Ajaz taking the one at point. But I actually think one of the most impressive ones, and I think I've got this right, was Matt Henry at fine leg. Have a look at the distance that Matt Henry had to cover there. I don't think there's that many fast bowlers traditionally who would have got there, let alone taking a catch like that. What makes this all the more remarkable is I'm not sure they always did get the ball on the right length. And Tom Blundell dropped one of the easiest catches you will ever see. But outside of that, they were pretty close to perfection all the way through. And compare that to India. You had Rohit dropped 2 catches. There was the missed run out. I don't blame Ravi Jadeja too much for that because his body was going towards the bowler's end. And I think what he saw is that the striker had got a bit slow and he thought, well, if he's going to run and I go to that end. But by the time he started to release the ball, they'd gone back to their spots. So he went to the wrong end. There was the missed stumping. They would just, and we've talked about that catch before. I mean, that was, let's just come back up onto that catch because I do think it's a remarkable moment. I don't think KRL will pick that up at all. I think he just lost sight of it, which is why he doesn't so much move away from it as he panics and thinks it's actually going to hit him for a moment. But Virat Kohli does actually move away. So if you look at it, you've got one fielder sort of slightly going this way and one going the other way. It was hilarious. They put up a graphic on screen saying the slips were 4 meters apart. They were 4 meters apart after the ball was bowled. They were not 4 meters apart when the ball was bowled. Box says, the most dominant home test team about to lose their 3rd match in 18 months. Australia has a better home record in this time. Are we witnessing the end of an era or at least the absolute #1 spot of India? Australia drew a series with West Indies at home and didn't play particularly well against Pakistan. Look, I think some of those, obviously I think you've got to admit that Bazball ups the randomness. And so, the way that England played always was a chance they were going to lose the series but win some key matches. And that's what we saw. And I think India got the pitch wrong against Australia. They produced a pitch that was too variable, which allowed a good team to sort of slip by and steal a game off them. They haven't lost this game against New Zealand yet. I know that sounds weird, but last time I checked, see what the rain radars actually say on this. Well, not the rain radars. So I was checking the game all the way through because it's quite interesting. That you actually had a situation where the draw was the favourite for a long time until I think New Zealand got, I want to say, their 6th or 7th wicket. I think the draw was still favourite, which suggests the people with the heavy money were in test matches. Betting on weather is probably where the most money comes in. So the draw is still 2.88. So India is 13.5. New Zealand is favourite at 1.7. That's not a very short favourite considering they have almost quadrupled India's score. And the next best is the draw at 2.88. That suggests to me that this game is still salvageable, at least with what the people who are betting on the weather maps are doing. Doesn't mean anything else. And I know I'd also think that that New Zealand would want a very, very big lead, right? Just emotionally, but they also probably want to do it in enough time to make sure that there is a chance for a little bit more rain. So. There we go. No one says, thanks for everything you do. Your analysis keeps me entertained. Well, thank you very much. No one. That's a very big super chat. And that's a huge thanks to you for doing that. I'm just seeing if we've got anyone else coming through. So we'll take another quick break and I'll see if there's anything else in the chat. I'm Jared Kimber. This is the Scoreboard. Like, subscribe, tell your mum about me.
If you watch this channel, you'll love us on Main, where we do deep dives into the greatest cricket stories every week at Good Areas. How did Virat Kohli play that shot? What is so weird about Neil Wagner? And explaining the incredible misery of being a New Zealand opening batter. Visit our Good Areas site today. Want to show the world that you not only love cricket, but that you know the game deeply? Well, you need a Bodyline t-shirt. In fact, at Bodyline t-shirts, you can actually buy a t-shirt about Bodyline, but also tees inspired by the greatest players in our game. Head to Bodyline t-shirts today.
All right, welcome back. We've got a couple more here. Crunk says, Fox Cricket has a thing for India. They never post India's success, but their failure. But they do for other teams. I don't know. I don't work for Fox Cricket. I don't know if, maybe I follow their Twitter account. I don't know. I don't know what you want me to do there, Crunk. They're probably just trying to get you to be angry and rage tweet them and get them more followers. Like, I don't know. They probably worked out an algorithm thing. It could also be, that India is Australia's major opposition, and they're like, well, let's stick our fork in a little bit. I don't know. But honestly, I don't think you should care. I don't know why you would. Steven says, India's top six have been saved by the lower middle order many times in the last 4 years. So a collapse like this, maybe not this impressive, though, was on the cards. Yeah, I think a collapse like this was on the cards. I think, if you look at the scoreboard, Stephen, what I was saying is I think they just needed to hold the firm until about that 25 to 30 over mark. And I originally thought it was the 18 to 20 over mark, but looking at the movement on that pitch, it was probably the 28 over mark. If they got to the 28 over mark, 5 or 6 wickets down, maybe I'm not sure if they could salvage it to a point where they could score 300 like they did against Bangladesh, but maybe they could have salvaged it to where they got to 120, 180, even 210 or something around that amount. Looking at the way that the pitch evened out. I mean, I still think it's a toughish pitch. I mean, if India had taken all their chances, I still think New Zealand would be in trouble is the wrong way, but they wouldn't be cruising the way they are at the moment. So I do think there is an element of all this that is fair. But you're right. The top order has been struggling. I don't think I'm blaming the top order specifically for what happened today. I thought Rohit's shot was a little bit loose, but I thought he was trying to put some pressure back on to New Zealand because the ball was going around everywhere. And that ball really, really seemed. I'm not sure what Virat's supposed to do with his ball because it lifts and it seems. The combination of both of those, and then also finding the fielder around the corner is always a little bit unlucky. KR also gets one down the leg side. Rishabh Pant just never looked like he worked out that pitch. And Jaiswal went out to probably one of the looser balls of the day. So I'm not in a position where I'm going to sell the Indian top order for this particular innings. But your general point, I mean, we've done videos on it, right? It's not untrue, and eventually. And this is all those times when the Indian lower middle order and tail and the middle order and all these things saved this team. The thing that we never really focused on at that stage was that a lot of it was also conditions based. Today, that lower middle order was playing in very tough conditions. And so it was a different world. Look at Jadeja. That he gets a ball that he sees going down the leg side. And he thinks to himself, okay, well, I can just flick this on the leg side, but it moves away. And so he ends up hitting the ball on the offside. R. Ashwin, excuse me, I haven't even talked about this yet. R. Ashwin's ball literally just launches at him first ball. That's not an easy ball to play, so much so that it breaks the corner of his bat, right? And then when it does start to settle down, we see Kuldeep start to bat a little bit better. Siraj hung around for a little while as well. Unfortunately, they just lost too many wickets. And that actually reminds me of, the sort of thing that happened to Bangladesh at times. It is a very, very conditions-based sport sometimes. Meet Ajmira says, do you think batting first was the worst decision by Rohit? I don't think coming into this that anyone thought the wicket would play the way that it did. And if anyone had suggested that, if there was even an inkling that the wicket was going to play like this, then both teams would have been desperate to bowl first. And it wasn't my feeling that both teams were desperate to bowl first. It's certainly not what I've heard from the ground. And it's not what I've seen. The one thing I would say is once India decided to have the extra spinner and New Zealand decided to have the extra seamer, the best thing that could happen to New Zealand is that they get to bowl first. But having said that, once you pick the extra spinner, you want to bat first, right? So in some ways, you're hamstrung by the selection decision. I think they thought it would nibble around for a little while. They might lose some early wickets, but then they would get control of the game and it would flatten out and they'd be able to make some runs. It did only nibble around for 26, 27 overs. The problem is that they were out by then, right? And that has to come down to O'Rourke and Henry, being brilliant. And also think about all those one-take catches that New Zealand took. So there were 5 catches that I'd say on another day you might take 2 or 3 of them. If they take 2 or 3 of those catches, it's not 46 all out, right? And it's a bit the same if you go back to, Stuart Broad at Nottingham or Cummins in Adelaide, right? Or Australia in Adelaide. Sometimes it's like you don't get any play misses, you only get edges. And sometimes you get half chances and you take all of them. And I think, that's generally when you have a collapse like that. It's the conditions play a part, but there have probably been conditions at similar times that India have gone out and gotten away with it, right? But they did look rattled. I'm not going to say they didn't. Sarfaraz Khan looked like he did not know what decisions to make. Rishabh Pant's decision to play that reverse shot was just, bizarre. We saw a couple of other balls scooped up. I think it was by Jaiswal a couple of times as well. There was some confusion and they did struggle. They were going up against O'Rourke, who's one of the most confident bowlers in the world at the moment, and Matt Henry, who had it on a string. So there were certainly things in there, in the favor of the bowling team. But when it comes down to it, sometimes you get bowled out for 46. Like that's just a thing that happens in Test cricket, and it happens to very good teams. And sometimes they go on to win the series. Like we have seen that before. We have seen, Australia and India get bowled out for comically low scores in series and still play really good cricket in that same series. Gaming Fort says, does baseball only work on flat tracks? I think it's an interesting one, Gaming Fort, because I think if England had won the toss and batted first in this test, I think they would be in front. Because I think this is just a wicket because of what it's a 5th day, 6th day, 7th day, 8th day, 9th day, 10th day type situation. I think because of the kind of wicket it is, it was probably going to deteriorate much more than you would normally assume a wicket would early on. So batting on it first was always going to be better than batting on it second, then batting on it third, batting on it fourth. But I do think there's an element of that. I mean, it's the baseball theory as a theory has been brought about from batting on white ball pitches, which are better than red ball pitches. So there's always an element of that. I don't think it's as easy every time they fail on a wicket that's doing anything. And the truth is that I think it suits flatter wickets more, but it can also be really, really handy in, let's say they had bowled Pakistan out for 220. I think a conventional chase of 220 on this pitch would still have been really, really tough, right? But you put in England's ability to put pressure on and the fact that Pakistan don't feel comfortable having like 8 players around the bat and all these sorts of elements, and you probably put yourself into a position of where that suddenly makes a lot more sense. We've also seen what are they called? England. We've also seen England win test matches under baseball that haven't been on good pitches as well, right? So I don't think it's as simple as that, but I think there's an element of it that plays out. Anyway, that's it for me. I would have thought can't even do that properly. I would have thought we'd have a lot more questions on a day like today, but there wasn't as much. Maybe everyone's just like, it's 46 all out, Jared. Just shut up. I'm not going to though, because I'm now about to go make a video about the entire Indian innings, and that video won't take me very long, will it? It'll be one of the quicker features, but that'll be over on the main channel in a little bit. Anyway, I'm Jared Kimber. This is the Scoreboard. Come back tomorrow. Come back the next day. Just come back.
I have a book out with Abhishek Mukherjee, and it is called Overthrowing Cricket's Empire. And it's about the stories of how each team beat England for the first time. We go all the way back to the demon Fred Spofforth getting annoyed at W.G. Grace for acting a little bit like Alex Carey. And then we come all the way to present times with Rashid Khan's England's redemption. We cover every single team to beat England in a major international, but we also talk about the incredible stories, like the barefoot basher from Fiji that almost played for New Zealand. In fact, this book is full of tales like that, like how Pakistan lost a top batter after he was on the run from an angry husband of a movie star he was having an affair with, and also how one future captain of his nation realised he might have to go out and bat at Lords and that he didn't own his own pads. Cricket was used as a tool by the empire, but what happens when those nations grow up and get good at it? Find Overthrowing Cricket's Empire on Amazon today.